I can't hear you, Gab. Oh,
That's great.
There you go.
So welcome to the BCAFM 2020 Winter Webinar Series. I'll pass on right away the screen to Heather that will introduce the webinar.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Heather, your illustrious, notorious, however you want to frame that, Executive Director for the BCAFM. And I'm joined here with Gab Spinall-Beignet from our new Georgia, easiest way to put it, while Georgia's back at UBC studying hard. And Wiley Bystad and Bruce Fatkin, who you will have known if you're a veteran farmers market person, as our past board president in the case of Wiley and our past board treasurer in the case of Bruce Fatkin. And behind the scenes, we have Tess Vanden Bosch and Meredith Schaub from the office team standing by, helping us and supporting us on this webinar and as well. So welcome one and all. We have a bit of a snowy day here in the Lower Mainland. So Wiley's in the Caribou, Bruce is in the Fraser Valley, and I'm in Delta. And Gab and the team are at the office in Vancouver. So we're spread out all over the place. Technology is wonderful. It makes this kind of thing possible. And we're super excited to be here chatting with you guys today. So before we get into the weeds and details of the purpose of this webinar, which is to introduce our new BCAFM vendor membership program, I'm going to turn it over to Gab to walk us through a bit of housekeeping in terms of how we facilitate and manage these webinars. Okay, over to you, Gab.
Thanks, Heather. So a couple of housekeeping items to start with for people that are not familiar with the platform that we're using, the GoToWebinar. So all the participants right now are muted, and when the presenter is talking, please mute yourself. So Wiley and Bruce and Heather when you're not talking. If you want to speak at the end during the Q&A period, as a participant, you may raise your hand with pressing on the little raise your hand icon, and then or alert us in the chat box that you're having technical issues to speak. If you're having technical difficulties or have a question or comment, please use the chat box or the question box right on your hand side. There's two options. So either you type in your comment, you are welcome to test it out right now, and you can also use the questions box to write your question, and we'll monitor the questions throughout the presentation. So as I mentioned, comments and questions for speakers will be monitored during the webinar, and we will address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. So my colleague Tess will be monitoring the questions and will share them with us. Just a quick reminder before we start. So as you may know, you're receiving a lot of communications from us. So the BC Farmers Market Annual Conference is happening March 6th to the 8th in Harrison Hot Springs. We're having lots of fun to organizing this conference right now. And currently there's three main elements that you need to know. So the call for workshop proposal is still open. So we're extending it until January 19. The early bird registration is open until January 31st. And Farmers Markets Award, you can nominate for different kinds of award until the January 31st also. So you may find more information on our website and in our different communications and newsletters. So back to you, Heather. Let's start this webinar.
Thanks. Thank you, Gab, for the housekeeping introduction for everybody. So as I mentioned, our presenters here today on the call are myself, Wiley, and Bruce. We're going to tag team on some of the content, but just going to start by thanking everybody on the call from the staff team and the board. This has been a bit of a long process to get us here, at least from 2017 when I joined in 2016. Working towards this launch of this program, starting with the bylaws change that we did in 2017 to adhere to the new Society Act. as one of those pieces. Board and Georgia in particular, myself, were quite involved in that process. And of course, Bruce and Wiley have been working with me for the last year to develop some of the bones of this program that you were launching today. And of course, the office team, Gabrielle, Georgia, Anise, Tess, and Meredith have also been very active in supporting the launch of this. Just updated the website literally half an hour ago, so all of the new content is on there now, for example, et cetera, et cetera. So with more to go. So thank you, everybody, board staff, for everybody's participation in getting us to this point today. So just to go recap what we're going to do in the webinar today, we're going to talk about, like, why is BCAFM launching this program? A little bit of an overview and some background there. Just a second piece will be some of the activities we already currently do and how those already support vendors. So some acknowledgement about how we support the sector, including vendors already. A rundown and summary of the benefits that we're offering through this new program, some details about process and application, and then some time and room for Q&A from the participants on the webinar as well. So without further ado, let's get going. So I'll speak to the why is BCAFM launching this new vendor membership program. So just for context, if you recall, we've had for a long time a vendor insurance offering. That was not a formal membership. It did require a fee to be paid by people who wanted to be eligible to apply for insurance, but we did not, that was not considered a membership per se. This is now a formal BCAFM vendor membership program, of which the insurance is going to be part of that and a piece of that. And we'll get into some of those benefits details later. But what we really felt as an organization was, you know, we're an association that represents over 145 operating markets. And on a typical day, as per our last data gathering on this, about 4,200 or more vendors are selling at a BCAFM farmers market on a typical day in a typical year. So with that in mind, we know we have a lot of purchasing power as a sector and a lot of negotiating power as a sector association because of our provincial scope, because we speak and talk to so many diverse and interesting groups, private sector, funders, government. We thought, let's take this opportunity to leverage our reputation and our purchasing power to start negotiating benefits that will benefit the vendor members and the markets with this program in particular for the vendors. So that was one big impetus for this. Secondly, oh, can you go back? Yeah, thanks. Secondly, right now, unless a vendor is actually following BCAFM on social media, all of our communications and correspondence goes from us to the market. And as you probably know, we ask you often to say, please share this with your vendors. So what this will do is people enrolled in this program will have a direct link. They'll be on our communications list, if you will, to communicate with directly. And that will help us have direct communications with vendors in service of the market. So we know you're busy. We know you have a lot on your plate. But generally speaking, anything and everything we do has something that may be relevant for vendors. And we want to make sure that they're able to access that information through our communications channel. So that's really great. I think in doing that, we'll also be able to survey vendors on behalf of the association to find out what kind of tools, resources, and programming can we strengthen, seek to support vendors on behalf of the markets as well. And you know, ultimately, a strong farmers market is comprised of three things: a really strong market manager and team, a really strong board, and a really strong bunch of vendors. So this really acknowledges the importance of vendors in the ecosystem of the farmers market. Market managers, board, and vendors together make for a strong, effective, and successful market. we also think that there's a great deal of interest in things like economic development, entrepreneurialism, small business, and by having vendors, we always have had vendors included in our thinking, but what this will do is let us to attract greater project and programming investment to support the markets, the vendors, and the sector overall because of that small business component. And then finally, this program will help sustain the sector and the BCAFM mission to strengthen and support you, farmers markets, market managers, boards, and vendors in a better way with its revenue generating impact. So we're very excited about how this will strengthen and sustain what we're already currently doing for the sector as well. So next slide, Gab.
And that would be me.
Oh, pardon me. Go ahead, Bruce.
Yep, thank you. So for the last 20 years or so of our existence, the BC Association of Farmers Markets has been working to advocate for and to strengthen the farmers market movement in BC. And while everything that the BCAFM and the markets themselves do to strengthen those markets is a good thing for vendors, there are some programs and some initiatives that have more directly affected those 4,000 plus, and I think it's actually over 5,000 in the course of a season that participate in member markets. BCAFM has designed and delivered campaigns to encourage customers to support the vendors at our markets. And together with our member markets, we've partnered with a range of community stakeholders, and they include things like local tourism, economic development organizations, to name a few. This new Farmers Market Trail initiative is a really good recent example of that kind of work in the communities. The association has engaged social media experts, I guess is the best way to phrase that, and to help design campaigns for the internet, and has both delivered those social media campaigns and shared the resources with the member markets, who've been able in turn to deploy those tools in their own communities to help attract more customers. BCAFM has also taken the lead in developing and delivering vendor-oriented webinars, conference workshops, and networking sessions for vendors. There's a really impressive assortment of tools and resources that are hosted on the association website, that if you haven't had a chance recently, or maybe have never gone to the website, do it sometime soon and pull down that drop-down menu that's titled Tools and Resources. There's truly an astounding array of really, really good information in there. The nutrition coupon program should probably not go unmentioned, delivered provincially by BCAFM in partnership with our member markets, and funded by the Ministry of Health, has gone a long way to helping vendors. I mean, the program is putting over $1 million a year in the pockets of farm vendors who participate in that program at our member markets. BCAFM, in collaboration with vendors and those member markets, have worked over the years to improve the guidelines for sale of foods at markets, and to standardize the interpretation of those guidelines by regional health authorities and the environmental health officers who work there and are responsible for overseeing the guidelines implementation at markets. And Food Safe and the BC Association of Farmers Markets spin-off called Market Safe, and the most recent Process Safe programs help food vendors understand and implement strategies to prepare, transport, and present food so that market customers can enjoy those offerings without fear of any health risks. And that's just a sampling of some of the stuff that we've done that we think directly benefits vendors. Gab, if we could go next slide, and we'll turn it back to Heather.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bruce. That was a great overview of the work we do in support of the sector, markets, and vendors alike. Obviously, a lot of those things, everybody wins in all the programming we currently do. So I'm just going to talk about our kickoff suppliers that we've negotiated with for the launch of this program, and I'll speak a little bit about the insurance piece, and then I'm going to turn it over to Wiley to get into the nitty-gritty for the other awesome suppliers we brought into this program. So we're really excited. We've spent the last year identifying a whole roster of potential suppliers to negotiate with and negotiate preferred pricing. And then we have to make a decision to kick off and start with something, so we have. Obviously, we wanted to retain the insurance for the vendor insurance offering as part of this new program, and just literally folding it into an official vendor membership program is what we've done. So we've not changed anything. Western Financial Insurance is still providing us a preferred group rate insurance policy, which is fantastic. We've now since brought in West Coast Seeds. Wiley will talk about the offering there in a minute, which is fantastic. BC-based company, and quite a big supporter of the sector as well, and small scale farming. We've brought in Farm Food Drink Consulting Services. These are the fine folks that have done our rebranding, BC Farmers Market's rebranding, have done some market research projects with us as the association over the last few years, and have worked with a myriad of farm and food drink related organizations and small businesses over the years. So they're well positioned to support the sector through this program. And then we've also negotiated with Edible Magazine Vancouver and Edible Magazine Vancouver Island as well to get some preferred pricing and benefits with those folks as well. So in short, this is who we're starting with. We have a list a mile long of other potential suppliers, and we've just, I think, scratched the surface about who can be added to this program to benefit folks in terms of cost savings and what have you. So just know that now moving forward, we will start to activate and look to add to this list moving forward. So it'll be a growing list in our view, which is really exciting. As mentioned already, I don't need to recap, we will be able to have a better direct communication with those vendors in this program as a function of being enrolled in this program. And really excited about where this program goes from here. So without further ado, I think I'll turn that over to Wiley to continue the conversation. Oh, pardon me. I think I've talked about, it's me still, it's about the insurance piece. So nothing has changed there. It's still Western Financial Vendor Insurance. They ultimately still determine your eligibility for insurance. That said, like today, you need to be enrolled in this program, and therefore that will make you eligible to qualify to apply for insurance. So that's not really new neither. So that's a little bit of the high level overview of that there. And then one comment around the dates. Right now, that insurance offering renews on February 15th. This program will renew on January 1st. We're working with Western Financial, not this year, but next year, to sync up those dates. In the meantime, Western Financial knows that, and they will be renewing an insurance package on a February 15th to February 15th date, all under the umbrella of our January 1st annual membership. So it sounds more complicated than it is. We're not concerned about it, and we will be working with them towards trying to sync up those dates. Although it's not a big deal, it would just make it a little cleaner for everybody. So ultimately, Western Financial does determine eligibility for insurance. And if a vendor was buying or becoming a vendor membership program member and was concerned about their eligibility, we would encourage them, as it says on our website, reach out to Western Financial, see if there's any concerns about your eligibility, if that is a deterrent or determinant whether you want to be part of this program. Okay, so like we said, there's a lot of other great benefits and the reasons to be part of this program. And overall, the cost savings, even from insurance alone, outweigh the cost of this membership moving forward. So that's another plus here, that you will save more money through this program than you will lose. Okay, so Wiley, I'm going to turn it over to you for the next stuff.
Okay, thanks. Gabby, can I have the next slide? There we go. So as has been mentioned, we actually ended up with a bit more of an extensive list of suppliers. These are the ones that we're launching with, but you can be expecting over the next few months some regular updates as we continue to add suppliers to the program. But the West Coast Seeds one is one that's really exciting, simply because as a provincial vendor, it's something that, you know, the vendors that we have in northern BC and in the Cariboo can use just as well as all the vendors in the Lower Mainland. So what they're offering, as you can see, is a 15% discount off seeds, garlic, and onion sets, and they're hard goods. These are direct from their online program, through phone orders, or through their head office, their retail location in Delta. Which, speaking as an out-of-towner, I know that whenever sort of our vendors head into the Lower Mainland, visiting the Delta is always on our bucket list. So that's kind of exciting. But so this will be one of the new suppliers that we have. And next slide, Gab. There we go. So Farm Food Drink Consulting Services, again, is another agency that provides some provincial services. And so they're going to, they actually have 3 different packages. And again, the details of all of this will be on the new website landing pages that we uploaded this morning. So they're going to have different packages that vendors can choose from. That will offer a variety of services and a variety of savings. So that I think is going to be beneficial across the province. And then next slide, Gab. There we go. So Edible Vancouver and the Wine Country magazine, and then Edible Vancouver Island magazine, a discount on the advertising package. So these will be some really great savings. They're suppliers who are familiar with what we offer provincially. I think that there's going to be some really great savings that we can offer for those. If you want to go to that next slide, Gab. Great, thank you. And then in terms of the BCAFM, being able to have vendors come at member conference rates, excuse me, a little cold here. We currently at our conferences have always had 3 streams of workshops, you know, where we've had workshops that were dealt with more specific to market managers, some that were more specific to board. And we've always had activities and workshops that were geared towards vendors. This is going to give us a real opportunity to make sure that they know about that they can attend the conference, and that there'll be some real, really solid information for them to take back. Again, the direct communication that Heather has talked about, and the promoting the markets where the vendors sell, and we've seen this with the BC Market Trail, which has been a great partnership with both the markets and the vendors. So these will be some of our initial offerings. We're going to have suppliers that already have a presence. We're going to be adding to this. There's going to be some new ones. And I think one of the other things is that if you're aware, oh, back up, thank you, Gab. You know, if you're aware of suppliers that, you know, that you think would be beneficial on both a provincial basis, you know, that is something that vendors are using or could benefit from, it might be good information to be able to provide us going forward. And I'm going to hand it over to Bruce.
Yeah, there we go. So application process really is quite straightforward, and shouldn't be anything, I don't think, overly new here for people. The application is available on the bcfarmersmarket.org website for download, direct download from there.
It's not download, it's online.
Or it's online, sorry. It should take people 10, 15 minutes to complete that one for most folks, we think. We will be asking for information on two things: products that are selling, well, more than two things, but a couple things to highlight. Certainly the range of products that the vendor applicant wants to sell, and the markets that the applicant will be selling at. When that application is submitted, the staff has actually committed, or we've committed staff, I guess, to respond to that within 3 to 5 kind of working days, and to be able to get back to the applicant fairly quickly on that one. So you're kind of not left hanging. And if the application is approved, then you will receive, as the applicant, some information, some instructions on how to pay your membership, and you're going to get a membership number as well. It's a way to track members, and it's a way that one of the ways that we're going to use to communicate to those suppliers of perks for vendors membership, who is a member of the paid up member of the association. So you'll be getting a membership number, which is new this year, and that will be a reference for, as I say, for the suppliers. So pretty straightforward process. Shouldn't be anything too untoward in there, we don't think. And if it's not clear as mud, then you can always fire a question at us in a few minutes here. Gab, you can go next slide, and we'll go to Wiley again.
Great. Thank you. So a couple things that I know that we probably already touched on. The vendor membership fee has been set at $75 per year. And again, when vendors participated in the insurance program, they were required to pay a $50 user fee, basically, to the association to participate in that. So for the vendors who are only participating for the insurance, they're going to see that increase, as Heather has pointed out. It is still a net overall benefit for the vendors participating in insurance. However, with the new and expanding benefits, there's going to be, as we've said at the table, some really good bang for the buck. We feel that the vendors are going to have a net benefit from this. The membership is calendar year, January to December, and we're not prorating for anything less than 12 months. As you guys all know, that just becomes a nightmare when you do stuff like that. So the annual renewal dates will always be January 1st. So we'll start communicating. We're communicating with vendors now as we start out for the 2021 year. That communication will start earlier in the season. And we do have some requirements, and I think as Bruce pointed out, there are some eligibility requirements for membership from the vendors. So selling at a member farmers market is one. Being able to follow sort of the bylaws supporting the mandate of BCAFM and of the markets is another. And these requirements are listed on the online application. So if you guys wanted to also check that out and see what we're requesting from the vendors when they fill that out. A couple of the pages are a little long because, of course, we have a number of markets. And so when we're asking vendors to tell us which markets they are selling at, they have to choose from the list. So it looks a little extensive, but it's actually quite a simple process. And as well, we're being really careful in all of our communication to refer to this as the BCAFM vendor membership. And we do this because it is separate and different from membership with the individual markets, and we don't want vendors to be confused with that. And so we're going to continue to refer to it as the BCAFM vendor membership, and hopefully that will help. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Heather.
Great. Okay, Gab, I'm just going to go back to that last slide for a sec, okay? So just to thank you, Wiley, that was great. I just wanted to add a few things to note too. This is a voluntary membership. You do not need to have a BCAFM vendor membership to be selling at a BCAFM farmers market, okay? That's another distinction from individual markets who may require a membership. This is a really different thing than that process. It is voluntary for sure. And just to reiterate about the cost savings, even just for insurance alone outweigh the fee, the annual fee, even with the increase. So, so that's good. I think the other thing is all of this information is actually now loaded on our website, bcfarmersmarket.org website. All of the details, the application links, the policy, eligibility, all the benefits, the details that Wiley went over already are there now live to look at. There might be some tweaks and things we forgot to add or need to clarify as we roll out and go forward, but it's pretty comprehensive there. And just to also reiterate that members in the BCAFM vendor membership program, so vendor members are non-voting members as per our bylaws. So markets membership has voting rights. Vendor members do not have voting rights, and that's as per our bylaws, approved by the membership in 2017. So I just wanted to note that little distinction as well. So in the policy that goes with this vendor membership, I've included the market membership information in that document just so that people can see, oh yeah, there's a market member, which is been our standard practice for 20 years, and here's a vendor member and some of the distinctions between them. You know, one's an entity and another's a thing or a business. So anyways, just pointing that out for clarity as well. So Gab, let's go to the next slide. So this is a bit of a call to action to the people on the phone, and Wiley and Bruce and the team in the office, we're going to start to promote this, especially throughout this year, to bring people's attention to this and let them know it exists, let them know the benefits. As we add benefits, those will be communicated out and obviously shared because that's exciting. And looking to markets along with sort of the BCAFM board staff to really kind of get the word out about this program. We think it benefits the vendors directly and the sector overall by offering preferred pricing, and sort of really, you know, is a good thing, I believe, for the sector. And so any way we can support markets to get the word out, we're very open to how we might be able to support that. We'll obviously be using social media. Perhaps you can link to our social media, retweet, reshare. And then Wiley and Bruce will likely be having some hands-on, you know, helping me and us to really get and help support the markets to get the word out on this as well. So look for to hear from us again in terms of how we promote this through, especially throughout 2020 season, so that we start to build a bit of some real excitement and enrolling in this program moving forward. And Q&A. So just one question from us to the group is that BCAFM plan is thinking about creating a dedicated Google group for these vendors in this program, similar to the Google group, but distinct and not the same as the market membership group, Google group we currently have. So it would be a separate listserv, if you will. And we're just asking the question, is there any concerns with that idea that we should be aware of before we launch that Google group for this vendor membership program enrollees? Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to the people on the call, and Gab and Tess to curate our questions that we can answer that might come out of this webinar.
Thanks, Heather, Bruce, and Wiley. That was a great presentation. So about this question, participants are welcome to answer to this question via the chat box whenever they are ready, or if they have an opinion on that. Otherwise, we're currently welcoming any questions that you might have, again, using the chat box or the question box. If we receive a lot of questions, we could also create a Q&A afterwards in a document and share it with participants. link to the recording that we'll be sharing afterward. That will also be accessible on our website. So any questions? Don't be shy. Yeah.
Hey, Gab, how many people are on the call? Just out of curiosity. I know we had a lot of registered, but how many are actually on the call?
We are 44, including
That's pretty
3 staff. So let's say 40.
Right. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good turnout.
Okay, so we have a few questions. First one for our speakers. Has the farmers market insurance and D&O insurance been changed to Western Financial Insurance, or does it stay with the cooperators?
Very, very good question. I'll take that one. So yes, the market insurance package that we've established remains with the cooperators. So nothing has changed. That one offering is still vis-a-vis the cooperators. The vendor insurance package is still vis-a-vis Western Financial. So no changes.
Perfect. What do you see as a purpose for the Google group?
I think, and Bruce and Wiley can weigh in on this too, and Gab, you guys as well. I think what we use that as a tool at BCAFM for discussions. Maybe we have a quick question or concern or something we need to bring to the attention of people quickly. Or maybe it's a place where people can have some dialogue and contribute back to us. So we see the value of it in, like, if we put out a question there, people can give us feedback there. And similarly, the markets may have a question, and it's a really nice peer platform to throw something out there, get feedback from peers, markets in that case, to help answer questions for them, or best practices, things they've done, things that work, things that don't work. So it's a little less formal than a newsletter, and it offers a lot more two-way engagement between the peers and people on that list. So Bruce.
Yeah, it's very much an extension of the activities that the association adopted several years ago now around the market manager roundtables kind of a thing, where this allows that conversation, which used to be pretty robust, or I guess probably still is. I obviously don't go to those things anymore, but it's pretty robust at those conferences, and it was informally happening behind the scenes with market managers, especially as well. I know when I was filling that role with the Abbotsford market, that I used communication with other market managers a lot, just to kick around, as you said, to kick around ideas, to brainstorm, solutions to problems, to say, gee, I've got this thing I'm wanting to try, and has anybody tried it, and what are the pitfalls, all of that kind of communication. And that's kind of how I see the listserv thing, because I know from having been on the ground at the markets that vendors already talk to each other a lot, and I think that they probably would appreciate, we'll find out if we get any feedback, but that they probably would appreciate the opportunity to have a platform where they could do that electronically, sort of at will, and maybe communicate to a wider base of interest. So from my perspective, that's a lot of what that listserv or Google group could be about.
Thanks.
As the vendor of the group.
Yeah, go ahead, Wiley.
I actually would reiterate some of what Bruce and Heather have already said. The ability for that peer-to-peer exchange, and also that sharing of best practice, and just the general questions, being able to have that. We meet people, other vendors at conferences or at other events. Being able to have a really nice, quick way of staying in contact with them, and having that opportunity to share both what's working and what I may need help with, and looking for ideas on how to improve, I think is going to be a service for the vendors that will help overall strengthen what the vendors are already bringing to the market. I'm looking forward to it.
Great, thanks all for your answers. We have a couple of more questions. That's great. Another one is, what kind of additional benefits are we exploring to come online to this program? Heather.
It's good, excellent question. So some of the things would be things like packaging. You know, we've talked, Bruce and Wiley and I had a discussion about packaging because, to be honest with you, our markets and our vendors are pretty good about wanting to reduce packaging and looking for options other than packaging. So we discussed, what about packaging? Compostable, biodegradable, for example. So that's still on the list of potential things to explore and look into further. The bigger philosophical question is, should we be promoting packaging at all? So that's another conversation. So just know that that was one big bucket of things. We've talked about, Bruce, do you want to talk about any of the other ones? That, like, there's a whole bunch of opportunities.
Well, just in a general sense, I could, but I don't want to name any names in case it doesn't happen. And you know, I don't want any expectations being raised out there. But I work around lowered expectations most of the time anyway. But certainly appropriate clothing would be one it's an area that we've investigated, as is farm equipment, and particularly smaller motorized farm equipment is another one that we've had some interest from a supplier on, and we'll continue that conversation. Those two right off the top of my head.
Yeah, and so, you know, there's things like soil. I mean, there's all kinds of directions to go for sure. Yeah. Wiley,
Thank you.
Anything you want to add to that?
No, you guys stole it all. It's I think that the hand tools, you know, leaving the packaging discussion aside, I think the hand tools is going to be something that provincially is going to be important to all our vendors, especially, you know, with vendors trying, you know, we're doing farming on such a variety of scales now, that being able to have a variety of tools, you know, I mean, my big tractor isn't going to necessarily fit on all the small plots, and so we need these smaller, you know, mechanized tools, smaller hand tools that, you know, somebody who's got, you know, 2 acres is going to fit perfectly for that. And so being able to you know, bring that to the table, I think is going to be, anyway, so that I think is going to be one of the ones that we're for sure hoping to have sooner rather than later, and we do have a number of ones that we're looking at.
And just to add to Wiley's and Bruce's point, you know, we generally speaking represent the small scale ag sector, which is, as people on the call know, a little bit different than larger scale commodity or more conventional, larger commodity based kinds of farming. Therefore, this program will bring into it the suppliers that are relevant for our small scale farming sector, unlike other memberships out there from other organizations, for example. So, you know, it's a really big distinction and differentiator, and it will fill a need, frankly, for the kinds of farmers and that sell at farmers markets. The other thing, of course, is that we know that we also have prepared food vendors. We also have ready to eat vendors. We also have artisans. Mm-hmm. So, you know, those are not to be discounted neither in terms of what kind of supplier benefits. Our priority is farm and food as a sector association. So those are the kinds of ones we're thinking of first. And then there's some things that cross over all things, like even the offerings in the mix today. Farm food drink consulting applies to prepared food, ready to eat, and farm. Edible Vancouver, you can advertise there whether you're a farmer or a prepared food vendor, et cetera, et cetera. So, but just know some of that small scale farming differentiator is quite important for us to address that need through this program.
Good point. About these benefits, if any markets or vendors have ideas, should they direct to us by email, maybe at our info?
Yes, please. That would be wonderful. Please do send it to info, and then internally, Gab, Tess will forward that on to myself, because I'm still working with Wiley and Bruce as a bit of a team effort and we'll take that, send it to me, and then I'll take it up with the team to talk about as well, for sure. Happy to hear from the membership and markets included, okay? Anybody who wants to give us ideas, happy to hear from it.
Perfect. So as a reminder,
hoping to hear.
Oh, the email address is info@bcfarmersmarket.org. You can also find it on our website. So a member, well, a market manager, Lily, is asking if markets are expected to promote this to their vendor, and if not, what's the plan on us getting the word out?
So never a must-have or must-do, but certainly we would greatly appreciate that opportunity for the markets to let their vendors know about this. We think it's a benefit to their vendors and the sector and their market overall as well. If vendors win, the market wins and the sector wins, and benefiting from this program. So certainly not a have to, but we would absolutely appreciate your support to get the word out. And if you're active on social media where we're tweeting about this, retweeting, sharing, we will obviously be chatting about this in newsletters coming up or bi-weekly bites. Even just sending people the link to the website, letting people know it exists. Yeah, that would be greatly appreciated, but certainly you're not required to do that, but we would love it if you could.
And also, if markets have ideas of how we could reach vendors in a better way, please let us know. And also, if you need something, a banner or us making an email that you can easily forward, please let us know also. That would be great.
Yeah, and that would be also to send that to info@. And Tess and Gab will look at that themselves, but also share that with the team, myself, Wiley, and Bruce as well, so that we can note that as well as we think about how we promote this in the year to come. And we'll be talking about this at the conference too, by the way. Not everybody on the call is going to be at the conference. Not every vendor is going to be at the conference, but we certainly will be chatting about this a great deal at the conference as well.
Another question about the application process. So if a vendor is applying to be a member and adds one of our member markets, and during the season decides to select another market, how can this vendor update the application process, or do they need to let us know?
Good question. So in short, the eligibility requirement of selling at one member BCAFM farmers market is really about, that's a bare minimum. So if you sell at 1 or 5 or 20, we don't need to know what the change has been. The general requirement is you have to sell at least at 1. So, you know, in the event a member midstream starts selling at others, fantastic. We don't need to know about it. That said, that will likely show up in the membership renewal next year on January 1st, 2021. They would be putting down where they've sold. We would know it for interest's sake, but we don't need to know it because we need to know it. But if that's clear.
Okay. And similarly, if a vendor does not sell at any market anymore, I'm guessing the membership will continue until December.
We will, you know, we're always trying to, like our market memberships, frankly, we're really, we trust and have faith in the goodwill of people, okay? When our markets apply, we trust in the goodwill that they're being honest. Similarly, we are going to trust that vendors applying for this program will be trustworthy and honest in what they tell us. You know, we have the ability throughout the year to kind of like test that a little bit and verify. We're not going to be verifying en masse necessarily, but we will have the ability to go to a market and say, hey, just checking, because we're just getting this program launched and rolling. We want to see how it's working to make sure that there's no gotchas, no glitches. So we can verify if we need to and want to. And in terms of like mid-year, right now, even with our market memberships, we don't discontinue memberships mid-year. That's just not been our practice. I'm not sure that we would do that with vendors neither, unless there's a reason to in the future. So right now, I think the big message is we're counting on people to be good people and trustworthy and show goodwill in applying for this program.
Thanks, Heather. About the insurance as a benefit, do vendor have to use the insurance company provided, or can they source it on their own?
Very good question. So like now, any vendor has any, they have the freedom to get their insurance, or any insurance at all for that matter, any way, shape, or form they want. So for some farmers, for example, they already have a bigger farm care policy. They may have insurance for vendor selling at markets in other forms, okay, as a bigger policy related to their business or operation. They likely are not even getting this vendor insurance program, nor should they. They do what they want to do. There's still upside to being a member of this for seeds and other benefits, but that's besides the point. So the fact is, a vendor can get insurance wherever they like. They can choose not to get insurance. That sometimes is determined by the markets. Some markets require them to have insurance. That's up to the market to say whether they need insurance or not. It's in their interest to have insurance, we believe, which is why we started this program of vendor insurance for the what ifs. So in short, a vendor can choose to get insurance wherever they like. The advantage here is if you don't have a bigger policy to roll that into, this is a nice solution for a vendor who only does farmers markets, or the majority of their business is farmers markets. So and it saves them money on that policy as well. So Bruce.
There was a bullet point in one of the slides too, but it's probably good to point out that Western Financial, in terms of vendor insurance, comes with a track record, and they have designed policies that work for farmers market vendors, so they know what they're doing. Not that other insurance companies don't necessarily, but these guys have got a little bit of a specialty there that I think I would have some confidence in.
Great.
It's a bit of a niche product, eh? Like this is definitely a niche product, insurance product and offering, particular to our market, and especially particular to vendors who don't do anything else except sell at farmers markets or a little bit of other business. You know what I mean? So, and FYI, that Western Financial offers this in other provinces as well, including Alberta. So it's a well-seasoned policy. It's a well-seasoned insurance offering for sure. And we've been using it and promoting it for umpteen years already. So.
On the same note on insurance, Kara's asking if we still have the option for vendors to benefit from better rates for life and dental insurance.
Good question. So we did look at insurance. We don't actually offer that. We don't directly have anything in place. We don't have anything that we've negotiated with an insurance provider on that front. We did look at that as part of this program, an offering we added to this program, and we have not completely abandoned the idea. That said, the work we've done to see what's out there has not come back as like, wow, that's got to do that. And there's some constraints in some cases. It's also, the challenge is with a vendor membership or vendorship of over 4,200 vendors, trying to actually negotiate something that fits for all is almost impossible, okay? So from the insurance provider standpoint, when they're trying to assess what fees and premiums would be, we can't even give them data that is sufficient. In other words, age, sex, gross sales, area in the province. It's impossible at this stage in our so far to have established one insurance offering that can work for all people. So it's not something we're top of the list. We have investigated it quite thoroughly at this point, but it's certainly not the thing that I'm going to go after tomorrow, in light of the fact that we know it's even difficult for them to quote on it, never mind bring it to life and do it. So it's a very good question, but we've not had success in having an easy solution for that. And quite frankly, a lot of credit unions, a lot of Pacific Blue Cross, a lot of things already exist out there that are ready for the taking by an individual vendor. Like a business or an entrepreneur and an individual person has all kinds of options out there to get that kind of insurance on their own without it being under the umbrella of the association. So, that stuff exists out there already. So the credit union system has some pretty good offerings, and Pacific Blue Cross as well, for example, to name a few.
Perfect. So we have a couple of minutes left and some more questions. I'll try to go through the general questions that we receive, and perhaps we can follow up with answers to other questions that participants had. So another one is about the application again process. So for people that do not have access to a computer, have we thought, or maybe we could think about in the future about an application that would be physical, so by mail or?
Certainly open to printing it off if requested. Either that person can find a colleague, a friend, a family member who could print that off for them and fill it out and mail it to us at the BCAFM office. Certainly would not be opposed to receiving that. If that were the case, I would say that if that family, friend, or colleague is willing to print that, they might be willing to lend you their computer or help you or a person fill that in online. That would probably be preferred if it could be, because, but it's certainly not out of the question that if we needed to process something manually, we could. But that would be up to the person to get a copy of that from a friend, family, or colleague. Worst case scenario, if they don't have a friend, family, or colleague, then please contact us and we'll print it and email it or send it to you in the mail. But I think in this day and age, there's plenty of folks in our networks who have access to technology.
All right, thank you. Just a clarification about the idea of creating a second Google group for vendor members. And so the goal with this is that currently we have a Google group for member markets. So whoever becomes a member market, we add them manually, the team here, to a Google group to which all market managers have access to. And so the idea with this second one is to have a Google group dedicated to vendors. And vendors would be welcome to use this one to email other vendors asking questions or suggesting any or ideas that they would have, or just discussing together. So that is the goal with the second Google group.
And just to clarify, Gab, we'd only be adding vendor members who are part of this program. Yeah. And subtracting if they're not. Okay. So just like the markets, we take names off, we add names on, depending on the membership. Similarly, this would be add, subtract, depending on any given year, whether they're a member of this program or not.
Perfect. All right, so a couple of minutes left still. So after the presentation, we will be sharing the recording, and someone is asking if we can make the PowerPoint accessible also for markets to share to their vendors. So I think that would be a good idea. Or not.
To be honest with you, I might suggest we don't do the PowerPoint sharing, not because it's not shareable. Our website is way more comprehensive now. We've just launched all the details of this program on the website, and frankly, it's got way more better information, clearer, very clear. All the links are there. I think we would be doing a disservice if we just shared this PowerPoint, because I can see where things are missing, and it's just not quite as clear as the website. Information is really clear. Insurance and the membership program, like all the details are sitting there.
Perfect.
Yeah. And just to point out, because we will be sharing the webinar, but we'll also be updating at the conference. So, we're going to have potentially additional supplier benefits that we'll be talking about. We'll have time between now and the conference. If there's any tweaking to be done, get some feedback from the markets and from the vendors. So that will be another opportunity at the conference to provide updated information.
And obviously the website gets updated as things updated. So if you haven't looked today, like we literally were making the go live on those web pages between 9:30 and 10:30 this morning. So if you haven't looked recently, and refresh your browser, okay? Refresh your browser, because otherwise you'll get old news in there sometimes if you don't refresh. If you haven't looked already, you'll see, wow, there's a lot of new stuff, and it's all there the looking.
Mhm.
Okay. So we're unfortunately out of time. We received questions about the insurance per se. So asking, maybe someone is asking statistics on types of and amounts of claims that that insurers are receiving from vendors, and what the insurance protects you against. Yes, Heather.
Those would be, there's an email address on there on the website. Please direct those questions to Western Financial. They may or may not be able to give you that information, honestly. It's kind of private claims. I don't know what they would have to say about that. That's not our information we have, or we don't even have that information. We're not the brokers, so we're not really privy to all the insurance details. And then what was the other question there, Gab?
Well, what does the insurance protect you against? So again, it's a question for the insurer.
Yeah, and they're going to be working out of the Cranbrook office now, the folks. So that email and phone number you phone is apparently to the Cranbrook office, I think, or will be shortly. So please do ask as many questions to Western Financial as you'd like.
Perfect. So thanks again for all your questions and comments. It was very helpful for us to get through them, and also to fine tune on our side the information that we share on our website. Again, if you have more questions, email us, call us at the office. Thanks to the three presenters that were great today, and we will follow up with an email with the recording and something easy for you markets to share to your vendors,
i.e. the links to the website.
Yes. Perfect. So that is it for today. Wishing you all a great day.
Awesome.
And voila.
Thank you very much, everybody, for participating. It's very exciting. Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. So, and Wiley, Bruce, and Gab, or Wiley, Bruce, and Heather, are we staying on the line?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, so Gab, is everything shut down, or
No.
like, how does that work? Okay.
Wait.
My technological prowess is showing up here.